Hello friends. Today my topic of discussion is Michel Foucault on discontinuity. Let's start. Discontinuity theory in metaphysics is a theory that all or some qualities of reality, such as space, time, matter or causality is discontinuous, divisible, can be broken into units, and there is no necessary connection of components. Discontinuity and continuity, according to Michel Foucault, reflect the flow of history, and some things are no longer perceived, described, expressed, characterized, classified, and known in the same way from one era to the next. For example, in 1863, no one looked upon the Battle of Gettysburg as the turning point of the US Civil War, and today, almost everybody does. The introduction and first chapter of The Archaeology of Knowledge, 1969, focuses largely on contradicting received ideas about the continuity of history. Foucault argues that even the new study of the history of ideas, although it targets moments of transition between historical worldviews, is ultimately dependent on continuities that break down under closer inspection. Foucault's goal is not the violent and permanent removal of all continuities, nor the erasure of all humanism and anthropology, nor the denial of the use of these concepts and their ready-mades in certain contexts. Rather, he seeks a more balanced form of analysis in which continuities are controlled and prevented from dominating and distorting history. Continuities and ready-mades must not be rejected definitively, of course, but the tranquility with which they are accepted must be disturbed. Foucault uses the principles of discontinuity, break and difference in his analysis, in order to undermine philosophical notions of unchanging essences in history. These essences include the man, human nature, and great man of humanist philosophies. Discontinuity also challenges notions of cause, effect, progress, destiny, tradition and influence in history. In developing the theory of archaeology of knowledge, Foucault was trying to analyze the fundamental codes which a culture uses to construct the episteme or configuration of knowledge that determines the empirical orders and social practices of each particular era. According to this theory, Foucault will say, discontinuity was the stigma of temporal dislocation that it was the historian's task to remove from history. He adopted discontinuity as a positive working tool. Some discourses would be regular and continuous over time, as knowledge steadily accumulates and society gradually establishes what will constitute truth or reason for the time being. But, in a transition from one era to the next, there will be overlaps, breaks and discontinuities, as society reconfigures the discourse to match the new environment. The tool is given a role in genealogy, the next phase of discourse analysis, where the intention is to grasp the complexity of the use of power and the effects it produces. Foucault sees power as the means for constituting individuals' identities and determining the limits of their autonomy. This reflects the symbiotic relationship between power pouvoir and knowledge savoir. In his study of prisons and hospitals, he observed how the modern individual becomes both an object and subject of knowledge. Science emerges as a means of directing and shaping lives. Hence, The modern conception of sexuality emerges from Christian codes of morality, the science of psychology, the laws and enforcement strategies adopted by the police and judiciary, the way in which issues of sexuality are discussed in media, the education system, etc. These are covert forms of domination, if not oppression, and their influence is to be found not only in what is said, but more importantly, in what is not said, in all the silences and lacuna, in all the discontinuities. If one idea is discussed, then it is not discussed. Foucault's emphasis on discontinuities is also a function of definition of what discourse is, and his tireless insistence on describing that discourse in its clear, definable details, without any interpretation. The archaeological method aims to describe discourse only in its active existence in the world, and eschews any reading of it that seeks a psychology, a spirit, or anything else beyond the statement itself, and its describable relations with other statements. This means that archaeology must assume nothing about the hidden unities that secretly bind together the many things people say. Any discursive unity must be described anew, on its own terms.